Paradise, California, a quiet town nestled in the foothills of the Sierra Nevada, a place known for pine trees, retirement homes, Sunday breakfast diners, and streets lined with maple leaves in the fall. To the people who lived there, it wasn't just a town. It was a final stop, the peaceful chapter at the end of a long life's journey. It was safety. It was home. November 8, 2018, began like any other morning. Dawn broke softly through the trees, and the town stirred awake. Children prepared for school. Neighbors sipped coffee on porches. Few noticed a faint plume of smoke on the distant ridge. Fewer still felt alarm. In California, smoke on the horizon was something people had seen before. A danger, yes, but one that usually stayed far away. But this time it wouldn't. At 6:15 a.m., a fire ignited near Camp Creek Road, a single spark carried by dry brush and driven by fierce winds. Within minutes, flames began racing uphill, feeding on brittle timber and drought-stricken land. Meteorologists would later call it a perfect storm. Record dryness, powerful winds, and a town surrounded by fuel. There were no sirens, no urgent loudspeakers, just smoke thickening in the sky. By 7 a.m., the smoke blossomed into a towering column of black. Embers shot ahead of the main blaze, carried by gusts reaching 50 miles per hour. Fires weren't advancing in miles per day. They were advancing in miles per minute. Residents began noticing the shift. The sun disappeared behind the cloud. Morning dimmed. The world grew strangely, eerily dark. Some received a text alert. Evacuate immediately. Others never did. In the neighborhood of Skyway Road, people stepped outside and saw a fire cresting over the treetops like a living wave. Birds fled overhead. The wind screamed. Propane tanks exploded in the distance. What had started as a smolder was now an inferno, growing faster than anyone could outrun. 911 lines jammed. Fire crews, already stretched thin, were overwhelmed. They couldn't fight it. All they could do was warn people to leave. By 7:45 a.m., Paradise was under siege. Traffic clogged every exit. On Skyway and Clark Road, cars barely moved. Some drivers abandoned their vehicles and ran. Elderly residents struggled to breathe through the smoke. Parents wrapped their children in blankets. The firestorm roared closer, devouring trees, homes, and power lines in its path. Witnesses recalled the sound, a monstrous roar, like a jet engine mixed with thunder. A nurse at Feather River Hospital looked out a window and saw flames curling around the building. Staff rushed patients into ambulances and private cars, driving through smoke so thick headlights were swallowed by darkness. Some vehicles caught fire as they fled. Roads became tunnels of flame. By 8:30 a.m., Paradise was drowning in fire. Telephone poles fell. Rooftops collapsed. Gas stations exploded. People crouched in ditches, pressing wet cloths to their faces. Some sheltered inside cars, reciting prayers. In one parking lot, dozens gathered in a tight circle, surrounded by blackened sky, waiting for the fire to pass over them like a storm. A survivor later said, "It felt like the end of the world. Everything around us was fire. Entire neighborhoods vanished in minutes. Pearson Road, Neal Road, Elliott Road, gone. The fire didn't creep. It leapt. It hunted. By late morning, over 20,000 people had fled. Thousands more were unaccounted for. And still, the fire advanced. At 11 a.m., news helicopters captured the first aerial images. Paradise was no longer a town. It was a blackened wasteland. Street grids remained visible through the smoke, but every square, every home, was ash. First responders returned when the flames moved on. Firefighters stepped out of their trucks into silence. No birds, no wind, only twisted metal and skeletal trees. Cars that burned in the middle of streets. Doors open, engines melted. Foundations glowed with embers. The air tasted of iron and smoke. One firefighter murmured, "We're too late. Everything's gone." Residents slowly came back in the following days, escorted by officials. Some couldn't find their own streets. Mailboxes lay warped. Street signs had melted off the metal. Ash coated everything like snow. A woman stood where her home once stood. Nothing remained. Not a beam, not a wall. Only a single porcelain teacup, half buried in gray dust. She fell to her knees. That teacup was all she had left of 40 years. Across town, a man sifted through debris with a metal rake, searching for a wedding ring. A firefighter found it hours later, warped but intact. The fire had claimed 85 lives. Over 19,000 structures were destroyed. Paradise had suffered the deadliest wildfire in California history. And yet, the people of Paradise refused to be erased. In church tents and school gyms, survivors gathered. They shared stories of paths they took, of neighbors who helped, of moments when hope nearly died. They posted photos of missing pets, handwritten notes asking, "Has anyone seen my father?" Some never received answers. Investigations would later reveal the cause. A worn power line, owned by a utility company, had failed, sparking an inferno. Lawsuits followed. Settlements came. But no verdict could return what was lost. Even so, the people chose to rebuild. Paradise began again, not as it was, but as it must be. Homes were redesigned with fire-resistant materials. Evacuation plans were updated. Sirens and alert systems were installed. What had once been taken for granted was now planned with precision. The town, though scarred, was not silent. Volunteers planted trees. Memorials were raised. Each year, residents gathered to honor the day the fire came, and the lives had changed forever. One resident said, "Fire took our buildings, but it did not take our community." Today, Paradise stands not as a symbol of destruction, but of resilience, a reminder that even in the face of total devastation, when nature shows its fiercest power and everything seems lost, humanity endures. The campfire lasted just over 17 days, but for Paradise, it took only one. A single day to erase a town, a lifetime to remember it.